AirAsia built this massive empire on a really simple, almost revolutionary promise. Now everyone can fly. But what happens when that low-cost giant has to figure out how to survive in a world where everything, and I mean everything from fuel to flying green, is suddenly getting way, way more expensive? Well, this is the story of the high-stakes fight for the future. Okay, let's just get right into this because this isn't just a little turbulence we're talking about. Right now, in 2025, the airline that literally painted its promise on the side of its planes is staring down a perfect storm. We're talking rising costs, tough new regulations, and absolutely brutal competition. It's a genuine turning point that honestly threatens the very core of its business. And this is the big question, isn't it? Because when your whole identity, your brand, is built on being the cheapest ticket you can possibly buy, what's your next move? That's the fundamental conflict we're going to dig into today using AirAsia's strategy as our case study. So here's the flight plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the winning formula that made them a giant in the first place. Then we will look at the new pressures creating all this turbulence. We'll examine the impossible choices they face, their pretty radical reinvention, the new war on costs, and finally, what the flight path forward actually looks like. First up, let's hit the rewind button for a minute. To really get the crisis they're in today, we absolutely have to understand the revolutionary model that made AirAsia such a powerhouse to begin with. What's so great about this is how simple and frankly how brilliant it was. This was their secret sauce, a ruthless four-step formula. First, they flew direct point-to-point routes, none of this complex hub stuff. Second, they turned their planes around in a lightning-fast 25 minutes to keep them in the air earning money. Third, they standardized their entire fleet to just one type of plane, the Airbus A320, which slashed maintenance and training costs. And of course, the big one, they unbundled everything. Your base fare got your seat. That's it. And did it work? Oh yeah, just look at this number. An average load factor of over 85%. That means they were consistently packing their planes almost full in an industry where every single empty seat is just money thrown out the window. That kind of efficiency isn't just good, it's an operational masterpiece.
But here's the thing. That perfectly tuned machine we just talked about, it was built for a world that, let's just be honest, it doesn't exist anymore. A powerful mix of new external forces is completely rewriting the rulebook. And this just shows you how they're getting hit from every single direction. Politically, a popular route can disappear overnight if two governments have a disagreement. Economically, they're super exposed to wild swings in fuel prices and the US dollar. Socially, we, the customers, we still want those low fares, but now we also demand a slick digital experience. But the big one, the single most disruptive force changing everything, is environmental. It's not a side issue anymore. And if you want to understand the sheer scale of that environmental challenge, just look at this chart. Sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, is what the industry is banking on to go green. So what's the problem? Well, it costs 3 to 5 times more than the regular jet fuel. For an airline that builds its entire business on razor teeth margins, a cost multiplier like this is an existential threat. Period. So you have all these external forces squeezing from the outside, and it creates what you see here. An industry that isn't just competitive, it's an absolute pressure cooker. And that intense pressure, well, it directly fuels a ferocious rivalry on the inside. This classic analysis really shows you the whole battlefield. The good news for them? It's really hard for new airlines to start up. And in a region full of islands, there aren't many good substitutes for flying. But that's where the good news ends. You've got powerful suppliers like Airbus and fuel companies jacking up costs. You have powerful buyers, that's us, demanding the lowest prices. And what's the result? An intensifying rivalry with a sky full of competitors like Scoot, Vietjet, Lion Air, and Batik. And when everybody is fighting in this crowded market, they're forced to compete on one thing, and one thing only: price.
So, all those external pressures we just went through, they create this incredible internal conflict. The company is basically caught in an almost impossible tug of war between what all its different stakeholders are demanding. And this right here, this is that conflict in its purest form. On one side, we have the passengers, the lifeblood of the airline, pulling with all their might for the lowest possible fares. But on the other side, you've got investors who are demanding profits and regulators who are demanding massive spending on expensive green technology. You just can't do both at the same time. It's a fundamental contradiction.
So, what do? Faced with this impossible balancing act and the near-death experience of the pandemic, AirAsia didn't just tweak its model. No way. They basically blew it up and started over with a truly radical reinvention. I mean, this timeline just shows the insane whiplash they must have felt in 2019. They were literally on top of the world. Just 1 year later, their entire fleet was sitting on the ground going nowhere. So by 2022, they make this huge move creating a new parent company called Capital A. And that was a crystal clear signal that said we are not just an airline anymore. So the crucial point is this contrast right here. On the left, you've got the old AirAsia, a pure airline, super successful. Yeah, but also incredibly vulnerable to shocks like a pandemic or a fuel crisis. On the right, you have Capital A diversified ecosystem. The airline is now just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and the whole thing is designed to be a fortress against the industry's brutal ups and downs. And this is what the new fortress. Under the Capital A parent company, you've got the core airline, of course, but now you also have Move, their digital super app, BigPay, their fintech arm, and the Teleport, their logistics division. The big idea here is to build a fortress of stable revenue streams. If your fintech arm is growing or your delivery service is booming, you're a lot less vulnerable when jet fuel prices spike. It's a strategic hedge against the chaos of the airline industry.
But even with this cool new ecosystem, one fundamental truth doesn't change. The core airline business still has to survive on its own. And that means waging a relentless daily war against its biggest and oldest enemy, operating costs. Now, to win a war, you have to know your enemy. And as this chart shows, the main enemy is jet fuel. It accounts for a mind-boggling 40% of an airline's total operating costs. Let me just say that again so it sinks in. 40 cents of every single dollar they spend go right into the fuel tank. That is a massive, massive target. So, their game plan boils down to this really clear three-pronged attack. First, double down on that obsessive discipline, cost control that they're famous for. Second, go all in on aggressive fleet modernization. And third, deepen that digital integration, create value that goes way beyond just selling a plane ticket. And this is their silver bullet in the war on cost technology. Their new fleet of Airbus A321neo. They're a total game changer. They burn up to 20% less fuel per seat. Now, 20% might not sound like a lot, but when fuel is 40% of your cost, a number like that isn't just an improvement. It's a massive structural advantage that your rivals flying older planes simply cannot match. Which brings us to our final section. Okay, so AirAsia has a new structure. They got a clear strategy, but they're flying headfirst into an incredibly turbulent sky. They face this triple challenge of being affordable, profitable, and sustainable. And it really all comes back to this. Their original promise was so simple and so powerful, but their new and much, much harder challenge is to prove that they can stay true to this founding mission in a completely new and more complicated world. So we land on the ultimate question, AirAsia's strategy. Their answer is to build this diversified ecosystem and fly the most efficient planes in the sky. But is that enough? Can any airline truly be affordable for the masses, profitable for its investors, and sustainable for the planet, all at the same time? You know, the success or failure of AirAsia's bold gamble won't just decide their future. It could very well write the next chapter for the entire low-cost airline industry. But one thing is for sure, they have a clear strategy. Thank you so much for watching our strategic analysis of AirAsia, an assignment in competitive strategy, presented by Pepa, Guillermo, Haslan, Joshua, and Halvor. Thank you again and have a great day.